Hello, this is a video that has been a long time waiting, and that is the C-verse predictions. I've tried making this video like 80 fucking times. Either my recording software fucks up halfway through, or some other dumb shit happens, like I get sick, Ryback gave me AIDS. But yeah, no, we are going to talk about what I feel will be for the C-verse 2020. I want to get this video out quickly, so there will be minimum editing. If you want to see better editing and a better video in general, go watch 64's, his Z-verse predictions. I agree with a couple of them. Well, a good amount of them, I should say. But in order to keep different, I will be talking about different things. So if these seem kind of out there, it is just to differentiate. And as well as I believe I have a little more swerves in here as well. But yeah, we have, what's the word? We have 4 sections. So I'll edit them accordingly like that. And besides that, I won't really have much like images and stuff like that. A couple of them. Maybe. Nah, I'll just have the text up there. So enough rambling aside, I sound like a fucking dipshit. We're going to go through swerves, companies, workers, and then I'm going to talk about India. That'll be a tricky kind of thing, which I'll get to when we get to India. But we're going to be talking about the swerves. For swerves are basically ideas I have that are very out there, but that I feel are varying in terms of, like, it would be crazy if it happened, and it's crazy to think it even would, but goddamn would that be awesome, or would it be like, that'd be shocking. And I have 3 of these. And the first one is a big one. I believe I may have mentioned that on that cursed live stream, which I want to do another cursed live stream soon. I'll talk about that in an episode or whatever. But yeah, the first swerve I have is that USPW will not be number 1. It'll be number 2, a very close number 2. Now, I'm not just saying that just to say it, just because I fucking hate US Pro. I have a distinct reason of why I think US Pro would be number 2, and I feel like they will be in the midst of some kind of scandal. The scandal can range from, I feel like a steroid scandal could make sense. You see Tyson Bane on the very far right of your screen. USPW loves their big fucking guys, and you get a lot of big fucking guys via, of course, steroids. Sometimes, hard work in the fucking shots. So perhaps there's a big steroid scandal, a la what the WWF went through in the early 90s. I'm sorry. Another thing I had an idea of is with the social media thing, that one of their key people, possibly maybe Alan Packer, gets hashtag Me Too'd or some shit, or like gets canceled, and thus has a bad effect on the company. And Riviera as a whole, even though Riviera has a large reach, people kind of disassociate with it. So they're kind of shaking. I feel like, if anything, they're shaking off the bad effects of that. And perhaps we will see SWF rise back to number 1. Speaking of the SWF, much like, it's kind of funny with 64, and I was going to talk to him next time I talked to him about it, is his kind of favorite company book is North of the Border Pro Wrestling, and one of the, I just kind of discovered them, but I fucking love them to book them. Mine is South of the Border Pro Wrestling, the kind of exact opposite of North of the Border, which is funny. And I feel that perhaps Champagne Lover will go to America. Now, why would he go to America when he has a sweet gig in South of the Border Pro Wrestling? Well, I feel that way would be mainly due to having, not only, he's very popular in America as well. He starts out with 90s in America, if I believe so, at least in the 80s, that reach kind of with, the border. A lot of, Spanish speaking people, myself included in real life, exist in America, so kind of that detachment is there. And in terms of what company he would go to, I don't see him joining USPW, because I always see Champagne Lover kind of as like a little edgy. So if anything, I feel like he would go to Supreme Wrestling Federation. And I feel if Champagne Lover in Supreme Wrestling Federation would be an awesome thing to book. the kind of matches he could have, the feuds he could have with the various people, aging roster or new roster, he could make a decent impact. Not that Champagne Lover is very old, but, SWF is looking for stars in the national battles, and Champagne Lover would be a very, very big get. And the last swerve I think could happen is probably the least one I have confidence in, but I believe Steve Fraley will leave USPW. Now, why will he leave USPW? Well, if you read his bio, it talks about how mercenary he is. And there's a couple other wrestlers it talks about like this. But it's just a very odd thing to comment on in TEW. Like, it's not usually a character trait that gets to end. But with, new character traits, I feel like that could have an impact. And maybe Steve Fraley, because of, Nikki Champion holding him down, or some other new signings coming in, kind of losing that effect, goes, fuck this, and leaves the USPW. Would I think he'd go back to the Supreme Wrestling Federation? Probably not. I know he has a hatred of Eisen. Kind of like in real life, maybe something happens like with the Ultimate Warrior and Vince. They go back on their thing and they become bosom buddies. But, I don't know where he would go. I just feel like if he were to leave, maybe he'd have a shock debut in TCW, and that could breathe some new life into them. But that's all for the swerves portion. Now we are moving on to what I feel about certain companies. Now, while I said South of the Border is probably my favorite company to book, it's probably second favorite. My real first favorite is Angel Athletic Association. And I feel Angel Athletic Association will have a huge growth in between 2016 and 2020. Now, I believe this because if you've ever played with AAA in the C-Verse, it always talks about how they are based out of the Northwest area, Seattle in my headcanon, and that they really don't ever expand out of that area. Except in 2016 C-Verse, Catherine Quinn, the new owner of AAA, it says that maybe, and this is a big quotation marks, wants to undo that and expand. I don't know how they would do it. Perhaps they get a TV deal. Perhaps they get a network distributor for their events, which could lead into something like showing off the broadcasting features. I have a lot of new features in my mind when I create these. But I feel AAA will grow up to maybe some kind of cult and become the biggest women's wrestling company on the planet, or at least in America. Another company I have dear to my heart is Freedom Caribbean Wrestling, and my thing is that they will probably join the Confederation of the Territories. It just makes sense. It just makes too much sense, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's right there. Why wouldn't they join the Confederation of the Territories? Their product fits with pretty much everybody, from New York City Wrestling to CZCW to the companies in Mexico. They have a lot of crossover effect, and that would be good for them. And yeah, I feel like that's kind of where they would go with that. The kind of big prediction is that TCW, Total Championship Wrestling, will be in a rebound era. And what I mean by rebound era is that obviously I think it's pretty clear, as 64 said, that they're going to get their ass kicked. They're just going to get the shit beaten out of them by USPW and SWF. But as 2020 starts, I feel that the game will have TCW in a kind of area in order to rebound. Perhaps they get a big signing that they just got. Perhaps they just made a huge star. And they have, if the player plays them correctly, can easily position them back not only into the big three, but perhaps even enough to kind of kick out one of the lesser two. Again, if you're player controlled. Even with the AI, I feel the AI should be able to take TCW for a spin and have a good time. Because I feel that's what TCW should be in the next C-Verse. As a more personal thing. Because TCW is very easy to book in the C-Verse if you know what you're doing. But enough about that. Let's get on the next company. Queens of American Wrestling. The last American company I'll talk about. I feel like they will be a little more popular, but the thing I have is they'll gain a good amount of pop in Mexico. And possibly join Confederation of the Territories. The Mexican Ole has a women's division, so that's good crossover with Queens of American Wrestling with their gimmick. Gimmick, their product, as well as having a good amount of kind of... It just makes sense. And gaining some pop in Mexico. Perhaps they'll have a secondary show they run in Mexico at the start of the game. Kind of, having that regional battles effect thing happen. Or urging the player to kind of go into Mexico, if you know what I mean. Now we're on to some Canadian companies. I only really have two to talk about. And that is All Canadian Pro Wrestling. I feel like they will fucking die. They are the worst company to book in the C-verse. Not that they have a bad product or bad roster, not by a long shot. The problem you have with All Canadian Pro Wrestling is just they have no money. And they have no way of getting any extra money. It's just a bad position they're in. They're in the worst area of Canada almost. And it's just not a good area. I'm going to blow my nose real quick. If I sound a little fucked up, that's just because I'm still recovering from my cold. And I can hear myself and I sound kind of fucking awful. I sound like Kane when he first talked. So that... and to contradict 64 a little bit, we'll talk about Canadian Golden Combat. I feel Canadian Golden Combat will still be around. They'll kind of be like TCW, but they will have built one big star. With sports entertainment, you kind of can rely on just having one guy at the main event scene. Not always at the top, or always with the title, or always in the main event. But you can rely on him to carry the company almost, kind of like a Stone Cold. I don't know who this person would be. Perhaps somebody from America coming down, one of the discarded, kind of like a Cody Rhodes analogy from, the SWF, or from TCW or USPW. But I feel like they will have a star that will let you kind of at least attempt to fight north of the border pro wrestling. Might not work. It might be like WCW. With Goldberg, perhaps you fucking ruin that. But yeah, I feel like Canadian Golden Combat will have a major star that you can build the company around. A fresh, young face. Maybe not young, but you know what I mean. Real quick, in Mexico, I feel another Mexican company will debut, or multiple others. I just feel that with the restructuring of Mexico, how there's more areas, you can split them out into different areas. Makes sense to me. A company in the UK, as 64 talked about, another company is going to be in the United Kingdom. It just makes sense. But my prediction is that this company will be in either Ireland or Wales. And my theory is that English wrestling is dominated by 21CW. It even talks about that. And for Scotland, you have that shithole hardcore company with, fucking Mark Carney. Also, I just want to say, for 64 people who like the C-verse, Mark Carney is totally an allegory for that fucking YouTube guy, right? I can't think of his fucking name, but the guy, he fought those brothers in the lawsuit, and that was cool, but that guy always rubs me the wrong way, and that guy totally fucking looks like him. Like, it's an exact fucking look, so either it's absolutely unintentional and a coincidence, or it is. And I don't know why, it just makes me laugh, because, again, that guy annoys me, and Mark Carney obviously is a huge piece of shit in the C-verse, so you don't know who he is. He basically, in the game, is the one that always fucking sexually assaults somebody. It'd be funny in the C-verse 2020 if he gets, canceled or something, but that'd be a fun little Twitter moment. Oh my god, Twitter, holy shit. I just realized Mark Carney's got Twitter now in the new game. That's going to be fun. But I believe since there's kind of this mini ethnic divides, I feel maybe Ireland will get a company, or the new area of Wales will get one, to kind of, have that kind of, regional thing kind of make more sense. In Europe, I do like Europe. I know 64 doesn't know a lot about it, and I assume everyone else really does, because Europe, no one gives a shit. Basically, the way I see Europe is this. There are two kind of areas of Europe. There's the part in the north in which we have European Wrestling All-Stars, which is hardcore sports entertainment, carny shit. And then southern Europe, your France's, maybe your Spain and Portugal, Italy, that absolutely love actual Catch Wrestling that kind of Ultimate European Wrestling offers. So with those two kind of companies, I feel that European Wrestling All-Stars will dominate. Perhaps they will have a TV show, kind of leading to more eyes on Europe, perhaps in the C-verse. Maybe another company besides those two in VWA will be in Europe. But for the most part, I feel that European Wrestling All-Stars will dominate Europe. We get in Japan. I don't know a lot about the Japanese companies. I've never really booked them. I do like the style, but I've just never forayed in the C-verse, except for one company. And that is 5-Star Supreme Wrestling, the Joshi company. They will leave Modern Japan movement. I have no idea why they're in the Modern Japan movement. Because if you look at the Modern Japan movement, what it is for money. You know, it gets more money, basically, is what it implies. Why they would get more money doesn't really make sense to me. For the other companies, it makes sense. Touring is not, it's not the most economically beneficial way of doing it. But for 5-Star Supreme Wrestling, they're literally the only Joshi company in Japan in the C-verse. They dominate the whole... It's like if Stardom was the only company. So, they have literally no reason to be in the Modern Japan movement. They're not going to get any extra money that they already get. Their style, it's going to hurt the tradition, which will hurt them. And everything else, it just doesn't make any sense. So they're going to fuck off, in my opinion, is what's going to happen with that. And, they will fuck off and they'll become fun to play once again. With the whole touring thing. And half the time, even when I see people play them, they just go to touring anyway and leave the fucking movement. And the last thing is that I think this has kind of been predicted in some of the mods. I've never played any of the C-verse future mods, quote unquote. But I feel Zen will have their own network. I love Zen. They're a funny-ass promotion with some awesome characters to book in the C-verse. And I feel like it just makes sense for them to have their own network, especially when Adam Ryland referenced in the Dev Diaries the Chikaratopia, like multiple times. So it just makes sense for them to have their own network. Anyway, that is the end of the companies. Now we'll get on to specific workers. And these will we're going to get into the first one, is these involve the kind of indie workers that 64 talked about. Kirk Jameson, Fox Mask, Roger Cage. In coordinates with the TCW kind of overhaul, I feel TCW will sign Kirk Jameson, Fox Mask, Masked Cougar, and the Ring Generals. I know he had the Ring Generals going to north of the border, and that would totally make sense as well. But I feel all these guys just make sense for TCW. They definitely don't make sense in USPW. And I could see them in SWF, but, whatever. Now we get on to Roger Cage. I feel Roger Cage will go to Rhode Island Pro Wrestling. Perhaps he's been there for a little bit. He's not too young, but maybe he's there just to kind of have just a little training in the style before he's brought up. And besides that, we also have Donnie J. I feel Donnie J will join the main roster in SWF. It makes sense with James Prudence. There's a built-in feud right there. Perhaps he's just joined. He'll be a little old, but, he'll be like, hey, James, you fucking piece of shit. Fuck you and Frederic, you assholes. And then I have Hell's Bouncer and Jebediah going to USPW. That just makes sense to me. They're big, they're bad. Except Jebediah, he's a baby face, so it makes sense. Jebediah, the gimmick, makes sense for USPW. It's always there. Now, if you look at the screen here, the kind of background I've been using, you will notice, if you're wondering who those are, I don't remember who the guy is. I made this a while ago. I believe that's one of the Stones. That might be Dwayne Stone or Dan Stone Jr. You have Zoe Amiss and Tyson Band the right, but in the, right in front of Ed Stone, not Ed Stone, one of the Stones, is the ultimate C-verse waifu, Joanne Rodriguez. Joanne Rodriguez is probably one of my favorite people to book in the C-verse. You just have that connection. The only other I think is that tops her. Zoe Amiss is there because she's, secondly, I don't know why I just like booking the women. I just feel it's fun. It's a little more of a challenge. And Charity Sweet is probably my mains to go Seaverse waifu, but Joanne Rodriguez obviously up there. Unfortunately, Joanne Rodriguez is at the age where she's probably now a MILF. She's a mommy GF, if you will. And in case you haven't vomited from your mouth already, what I'm implying is that she will have her final days, her like goodbye tour going on in USPW. It pains me to say it, but Joanne's career is just kind of... If she's not retired, if she's retired at the beginning, I might just fucking cry. But I will cry, when Joanne finally is hanging up. But more importantly, what this does with USPW's women's division is that this creates a massive divide with Alicia Strong. It is basically implied Joanne Rodriguez is not in USPW because of her. So her joining USPW, Alicia Strong will say, fuck you, I'm out. And she will leave, and I think she will go to AAA, causing that was the last thing I was saving. That kind of whoa moment that pushes AAA over the edge. In my kind of last prediction for that, the main stars I have of AAA will be Zoe Amiss, the kind of main event scene, Jamie Quinn, Paige Croft, and Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox could easily be inserted into the A-list, who basically their gimmick, if you don't know Seaverse, is that they were a couple women who were in the big time in USPW. They left, so they're just like, they're basically two Miz's, like, haha, we're bigger than the fucking industry. 64 also talked about Jonathan Frost. I feel Jonathan Frost could also go to TCW. I also thought of him being the guy that goes to Canadian Golden Combat. That would be a shock. I don't think he will. I feel like I'd see him more in TCW if he goes to North America. And finally, I feel Rocky Golden will show up in the Supreme Wrestling Federation. Now, why SWF? I feel like SWF have murder in their eyes when it comes to signing people, so they will just jump at every opportunity to get somebody new. And someone like Rocky Golden could easily have dream matches with someone like Jack Bruce, Angry Gilmore. It could be a really, really big signing for them. So I feel like that's where he would go. I'm kind of speed running through this the first time. Usually by the last time I recorded these, I was still at like companies. So that's good. But now we're moving on to the final thing I want to talk about, and that's India. Now, this is awkward because in the last kind of dev diary that's been posted, at the time of this recording I'm just going to probably post this the same fucking day. So it's the March 8th. He has basically said every area he's worked on, and he has not included India. So I was almost like, is India still in the game? Are we still doing that? As far as I know, yes. And I feel that maybe he's hiding it. I don't know if Adam Reinland purposely didn't include it or just forgot about it. But yeah, no. How I feel India will look is this, and this will be a short end to it. That is, I feel India will either have a somewhat developed scene, maybe 3-4 companies, or a very emerging one or two. I'm leaning towards emerging one. And the two companies I basically have, I have two. One is a performance art Bollywood-inspired company. If you've watched Bollywood, I love movies. And Bollywood is so fucking weird. And one of the products in the kind of product section that, like, the new product is performance art, which is basically like musicals with wrestling. I feel like that's just there not just to be there, but yeah, I was like, oh, that could be like a Bollywood type thing you'd have going on, which would be awesome. And then a more technical based company, like, just a wrestling company, a kind of local thing, probably like the lowest on the card out of all companies in the world. Be a fun challenge to do. But that's how I feel India is. And that, my friends, is all my Seaverse predictions. Sorry this video took so long to make. Sorry it's not as edited. These are my, like I said, my Seaverse predictions. When the demo comes out, I will be live streaming that. So when you see the demo come out that day, I'll fucking skip school if I can. I'll be honest with you. Fuck that university shit. and I will go to just play the C-verse. I will look at the C-verse. And I also probably, and I know I mentioned this before, so I'm just rambling at this point. But how the channel is gonna work basically is I want to do a C-verse series because again I like the C-verse. So I will be doing that with the WWE save. So WWE save I will probably do more in the schedule I do now, where I record a couple episodes, take a break, record the next couple episodes, take a break. Whereas the C-verse, I can just snap, kind of just go, like in one big fell swoop. Record like 3-4 episodes and put them all out there. So that's how that's going to work. I don't know what company I'll do. I don't want to leave it to a vote since I want to be putting... It'll probably... spoiler alert, if any company it is, probably it's going to be AAA. Because again, I love AAA. And I don't think there's a single series on the C-verse Women's for YouTube. I could look. If I do find it, I'll shout them out because, I love AAA and I love booking them. They're a pain in the ass to book now because just regional battles, especially with Rhode Island Pro Wrestling. Holy shit. I am so fucking glad regional battles have been reworked so it's in your region. I don't know why this Northwestern women's company is being compared to fucking NXT of the C-verse, but now I'm just ranting, so I'm going to end this video. Thanks for watching so much. I love you all, guys. I will see you for the next episode of WWE Save, as well as whenever TW 2020 demo drops. I'll see you guys then.